Have you ever had that strange feeling where you know a word in your language, but the English version disappears from your mind at the exact moment you need it?
Oh yes, and somehow it always happens in the most embarrassing situations.
Exactly. You are in the middle of a conversation, maybe talking to a friend, maybe in a meeting, maybe speaking to someone online, and suddenly your brain freezes.
And then you start panicking because the more you try to remember the word, the further away it feels.
That is what makes today's episode so interesting, because this is not just about English. This is about your brain.
And today we are going to challenge it.
We are going to explore why your brain forgets simple words, why overthinking destroys your confidence, and why some people seem to speak English naturally while others always feel stuck.
And here's the surprising part. Sometimes the problem is not your English level.
It is the way you are training your brain.
So if you have ever said, "I understand English, but I cannot speak it," this episode might completely change the way you see yourself.
And stay until the end, because one simple brain exercise we will share later can completely transform the way you speak.
Also, while you are listening, tell us in the comments, what is one English word you always forget when you need it most?
That is going to be fun, because everyone has that one word.
Mine is receipt. I always forget it when I am shopping.
And mine used to be schedule. I could never pronounce it the same way twice.
So if you are ready, take a deep breath, relax, and let your brain wake up a little.
Because today's episode is not going to be easy.
But that is exactly why it's going to help you grow.
One of the biggest myths in language learning is that smart people learn English faster.
That sounds true, though.
It sounds true, but it is not always true. Some very intelligent people struggle with speaking English because they think too much.
Wait, so thinking too much can actually make your English worse?
Absolutely. Imagine your brain like a crowded room. If there are too many thoughts inside, there is no space for words to come out naturally.
That explains a lot.
A person starts speaking and suddenly thinks, is this grammar correct? Am I using the right tense? What if I make a mistake? What if they laugh at me?
And then the conversation is already over before they even answer.
Exactly. Their brain becomes too busy checking every small detail.
I think a lot of viewers will relate to that because maybe you know the answer in your head, but when someone asks you a question in English, you suddenly become silent.
And then later, when you are alone, the perfect sentence appears in your mind.
That is the worst feeling.
But here's the good news. Your brain is not broken. You are just training it in the wrong way.
That is such an important difference.
Because many people spend years learning English like a school subject. They memorize grammar rules, they do exercises, they read long lists of vocabulary.
But real conversations don't feel like school.
Exactly. Real conversations are fast, emotional, messy, and unpredictable.
You do not have 10 seconds to think about present perfect tense when somebody asks you a simple question.
You need fast reactions. You need confidence. You need your brain to trust itself.
And trust is something many English learners do not have.
Because they think making mistakes means they are failing.
When actually, mistakes are proof that you are trying.
Exactly. Think about a child learning to walk. Nobody expects a baby to stand up and walk perfectly on the first day.
That baby falls again and again.
But nobody says, maybe walking is not for you.
That would sound ridiculous.
And yet, many people do exactly that with English. They make one mistake, forget one word, pronounce one sentence badly, and suddenly they think, maybe I'm just not good at languages.
If you have ever thought that, we want you to stop right now.
Because speaking English is not about being perfect.
It is about being brave enough to continue even when you are not perfect.
And in the next part, we are going to talk about one of the biggest enemies of fluency.
Your own inner voice.
Because sometimes the person stopping your English is not your teacher, not your level, not your memory.
It is the voice inside your head saying, you are not ready yet.
Let us talk about that inner voice, because this is where the real battle happens.
You mean that little voice in your head that keeps saying negative things?
Exactly. That voice that says, do not speak because you will make a mistake.
Or, your accent sounds strange.
Or, everyone else speaks better than you.
That voice can be so powerful.
And the scary part is that after hearing it for years, you start believing it.
So even if your English improves, your confidence does not improve with it.
Exactly. Some people have intermediate or even advanced English, but they still feel like beginners because their mind keeps attacking them.
That is so true. Sometimes the problem is not your skill, it is your self-image.
Yes, if you see yourself as the person who is bad at English, then every mistake feels like proof.
And every small success feels like luck.
Exactly. But imagine changing that story.
You mean changing the way you talk to yourself?
Yes. Imagine saying, I am improving every day. I do not need perfect English. I just need clear communication.
That already feels lighter.
Because your brain listens to the words you repeat.
So if you constantly say, I cannot speak English, your brain starts accepting that as truth.
But if you start saying, I am becoming more fluent every week, your brain slowly begins to believe that too.
This sounds simple, but it is actually powerful.
Very powerful, because confidence is not magic, it's repetition.
That means the thoughts you repeat become the reality you experience.
Exactly. And here's a quick challenge for everyone listening right now.
Ooh, I like this.
I want you to pause for a moment and think about the last negative thing you said to yourself about your English.
Maybe it was something like, my pronunciation is terrible.
Or, I always forget words.
Or even, I'm too old to learn.
Now replace that sentence with something more useful.
Instead of, my pronunciation is terrible, say, my pronunciation is getting better every time I practice.
Instead of, I always forget words, say, I am building my vocabulary step by step.
Instead of, I am too old to learn, say, I can improve at any age if I stay consistent.
Because the way you speak to yourself matters more than most people realize.
And if this idea is helping you already, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Talk Easy Daily, because we want to keep helping you build not only your English, but also your confidence.
Now here's something even more surprising.
What is it?
Your brain remembers emotions better than information.
Wait, really?
Yes, that's why you can forget 10 vocabulary words in one day, but still remember one embarrassing moment from 5 years ago.
That is painfully true.
Your brain gives special attention to emotional experiences.
So how can we use that to improve English?
By connecting English to feelings, stories, and real life.
Not just memorizing random lists.
Exactly. Imagine trying to memorize the word hungry.
Simple enough.
You can read it 10 times from a vocabulary list and still forget it tomorrow.
That happens all the time.
But imagine this. You are outside all day. You skip lunch. It's late at night. You come home and open the fridge, and there's nothing inside.
Now I can feel the word hungry.
Exactly, because now it's connected to an emotion and a situation.
That makes it much easier to remember.
The same is true for almost every word in English.
So instead of memorizing the word angry, imagine a moment when somebody lied to you.
Instead of memorizing excited, imagine the feeling before a trip or a birthday.
Instead of memorizing nervous, imagine walking into an interview or giving a presentation.
This is one of the fastest ways to train your brain.
Because you're not learning words, you're learning experiences.
Exactly. And that's why movies, podcasts, stories, and conversations are often more powerful than grammar books alone.
Because they create emotional connections.
And your brain loves emotional connections.
Let me ask something that many viewers are probably thinking right now.
Go ahead.
What if somebody understands English when they listen, but they still cannot speak?
That is a very common problem.
And very frustrating.
It happens because listening and speaking are different skills.
Like understanding football versus actually playing football.
Exactly. You can watch hundreds of matches, understand the rules, know the players, and still not be good on the field.
Because you need practice.
The same thing happens with English. Many people consume English every day through YouTube, movies, songs, and social media.
But they almost never speak.
Exactly. So their brain becomes very good at recognizing English, but not producing it.
That is such an important difference.
And here's the truth. If you want to speak better, you must train your mouth, not only your ears.
That sounds funny, but it makes sense.
You need to say words out loud, repeat phrases, shadow native speakers, pause videos, and answer questions yourself.
Even if you're alone?
Especially if you are alone.
Because being alone removes the fear of judgment.
Exactly. One of the best exercises is to talk to yourself in English for 5 minutes every day.
Some people might think that sounds strange.
Maybe, but it works.
What should they talk about?
Anything. Talk about your day. Describe your room. Explain what you ate for breakfast. Tell a story from your childhood.
That sounds easy enough.
It sounds easy, but most people never do it.
Which is why most people stay stuck.
Exactly. In the next part, we are going to talk about a strange habit that destroys your fluency without you even noticing.
And almost everyone does it every single day.
Here is the strange habit that destroys fluency.
I am curious now.
Translating everything in your head before you speak.
Oh no, I do that all the time.
Most people do. They hear a question in English, translate it into their own language, create an answer in their own language, and then translate it back into English.
That sounds exhausting.
Because it is exhausting, and it is slow.
Which explains why conversations can feel stressful.
Exactly. By the time you finish translating everything in your mind, the other person is already talking about something else.
So what should people do instead?
Start thinking in English, even in very small ways.
That sounds difficult.
At first, yes, but it becomes easier very quickly if you practice.
Can you give an example?
Of course. Imagine you wake up in the morning.
Okay.
Instead of thinking in your own language, I need coffee, try saying it in English inside your mind.
I need coffee.
Exactly. Then maybe you look outside and think, it is cloudy today.
Or I am tired.
Or, I need to answer that message.
So the goal is to make English feel more natural inside your daily life.
Exactly. Because fluency begins in the mind before it appears in your mouth.
I really like that sentence.
And here is something important. You do not need to think in perfect English.
That is a relief,
If your English thoughts are simple, that is completely fine.
because simple English is still English.
Exactly. Many learners think they need to use complicated words to sound intelligent.
But complicated words often make people more nervous.
And they also make communication harder.
So simple is powerful.
Very powerful. Imagine two people introducing themselves.
Okay,
One person says, I possess a profound enthusiasm for culinary exploration and gastronomic experiences.
that sounds like a robot trying too hard.
Exactly. The other person says, I really love trying new food.
Much better.
Simpler, clearer, more natural.
And probably easier to remember too.
Absolutely. One of the biggest secrets of fluent speakers is that they often use very simple language.
Really?
Yes, they are not trying to impress people. They are trying to connect with people.
That is such an important difference.
Because communication is not about using the fanciest words.
It is about making sure people understand you.
Exactly. And if you are always searching for the perfect word, you will often say nothing at all.
That is so true. Sometimes people know a simple word, but they keep searching for a more advanced one.
And while they're searching, they lose confidence.
So if you forget a word, just use another word,
Exactly. That is a skill called paraphrasing.
which sounds difficult but is actually simple.
Very simple. For example, maybe you forget the word receipt.
My favorite forgotten word.
Then you can say, the paper they give you after shopping.
People will still understand.
Exactly. Or maybe you forget the word elevator.
Then you can say the thing that takes people up and down in a building.
Perfect.
So fluency is not about knowing every word. It's about finding another way to communicate.
Exactly. And this changes everything because suddenly you stop being afraid of forgetting vocabulary.
Because you know you can still survive the conversation.
Exactly. Here's a quick challenge for everyone listening.
I love these challenges.
The next time you forget an English word, do not stop speaking.
Keep going.
Describe the word. Explain the idea. Use other words.
Because your goal is communication, not perfection.
Exactly. And if you try this, let us know in the comments because we would love to hear your examples.
Some of them will probably be really funny.
And funny moments are actually great for learning.
Because you remember them.
Exactly. Now let's talk about another thing that secretly hurts your English.
What is it?
Comparing yourself to other people.
That is a big one.
Very big. Especially now because social media makes it worse.
Because you see people online speaking perfect English and suddenly you feel behind.
Exactly. You watch someone speaking fluently, using advanced vocabulary, sounding confident, and you think, why am I not like that?
And then you forget that they may have been practicing for 10 years.
Exactly. You are comparing your beginning to someone else's middle.
Or even someone else's expert level.
And that is dangerous because comparison steals motivation.
It makes people feel like giving up.
Yes, but the only person you should compare yourself to is the person you were 6 months ago.
That is such a healthier way to think.
Because maybe 6 months ago you were afraid to say one sentence in English.
And now you can watch podcasts, understand videos, and have small conversations.
That's progress.
Even if you are not perfect yet.
Exactly. Never ignore your progress just because somebody else is ahead of you.
Because everybody learns at a different speed.
And everybody has a different life, different schedule, different challenges, and different experience.
So your journey is your journey.
Exactly. And in the next part, we are going to talk about one of the most powerful ways to make English stick in your brain.
Stories.
Because your brain may forget rules.
But it never forgets a good story.
Let us talk about stories, because stories are one of the most powerful learning tools in the world. And honestly, people remember stories much more than rules. Exactly. You can forget 10 grammar lessons, but you will remember one emotional story for years. Which means stories can help your English stay in your memory longer. Absolutely. Imagine somebody teaches you the word lost. That is easy to forget. But imagine hearing this story instead. A man is driving in a new city at night. His phone battery dies. It starts raining. Every street looks the same. He has no idea where he is. Now I can feel the word lost. Exactly, because your brain is creating pictures, emotions, and tension, which makes the word stronger in your memory. This is why movies are so useful for learning English. Because every scene tells a story. Exactly. You hear vocabulary inside real situations, and you see faces, emotions, reactions, and body language, which gives your brain more information to connect with. That is probably why people remember phrases from movies more easily than phrases from textbooks.
Exactly. A textbook might teach you the sentence, "I am really tired." But a movie shows someone coming home after a terrible day, falling onto the sofa and saying, "I'm exhausted." And because that moment feels real, your brain remembers it. So if someone wants to improve faster, they should spend more time with stories. Yes, stories, podcasts, interviews, movies, TV shows, even short videos. And not just watching passively. Exactly. Be active. Pause the video. Repeat sentences. Copy the emotion. Imagine you are part of the scene. That sounds much more fun than memorizing vocabulary lists. Because it is more fun. And when learning is fun, people stay consistent, which is the real secret. Consistency matters more than motivation. Absolutely. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel excited to study, and other days you don't want to do anything. That is normal. Very normal. But if you only study when you feel motivated, your progress will be slow, because motivation is not reliable. Exactly. Discipline is more reliable, which means studying even when you don't feel like it. Yes, even 10 minutes a day can change your English if you do it consistently. 10 minutes doesn't sound like much, but 10 minutes every day becomes more than 60 hours in a year. Wow, that sounds much bigger when you say it like that. Because small actions become powerful when you repeat them. Kind of like going to the gym. Exactly. One day in the gym doesn't change your body, but months of exercise do. The same is true for English. One podcast will not make you fluent, but listening every day will change your brain. Exactly. And here's something many people don't realize. What is it? Your brain loves routine. Really? Yes. If you practice English at the same time every day, your brain starts expecting it. So maybe every morning while drinking coffee, or every evening before bed, or while driving, walking, cooking, or cleaning. Exactly. The more English becomes part of your normal life, the easier it feels, because it stops feeling like hard work. Exactly. It becomes a habit, and habits are powerful because they happen automatically. Yes, imagine if every day you listened to 10 minutes of English, learned 3 new words, and spoke for 5 minutes. That sounds very simple, but after 1 year, your English would be completely different. That is exciting because it means progress is possible for anyone. Exactly. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need a simple plan that you can actually follow. Yes, because the best study routine is not the most complicated one. It's the one you can continue doing. Exactly. Now let me tell you a short story. I love story time. There was a man who wanted to improve his English, but he was always busy. That sounds familiar. He worked long hours, he had family responsibilities, he felt tired all the time. So he probably thought he didn't have enough time. Exactly. He kept saying, "I will start next month. I will start when life becomes easier." But life never became easier. Exactly. Then one day he made one small change. What did he do? Every day while driving to work, he listened to English podcasts for 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes? Yes, nothing more. He did that every day for 1 year. And what happened? At first he understood almost nothing. That can feel discouraging. But he continued. After a few weeks, he started recognizing words. After a few months, he understood full sentences. After 1 year, he could have real conversations in English. That is incredible. And the best part is that he never studied for hours every day. He just stayed consistent. Exactly. That is the lesson. Small steps are not weak. Small steps are how big changes happen. And if you are listening right now and thinking, "My English is too bad," remember this. Everyone starts somewhere. Every fluent speaker was once a beginner. Every confident speaker was once nervous. Every person who speaks naturally today once struggled to remember simple words. So if they can improve, you can improve too. Absolutely. And if you are still listening, write the word consistent in the comments, because that is the real theme of today's episode. Not perfect, not genius, consistent. Because consistency beats talent when talent doesn't practice. And in the next part, we are going to talk about advanced ways to train your brain faster, including one exercise that can completely change the speed of your English thinking.
Let us move into something more advanced now, because this is where your brain can start improving much faster.
I am ready.
One of the most powerful exercises for speaking English is called shadowing.
I have heard that word before, but what does it actually mean?
Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say almost immediately.
Like copying them?
Exactly. You copy the words, the rhythm, the pronunciation, and even the emotion.
That sounds challenging.
It is challenging, but that is why it works so well.
Can you give an example?
Of course. Imagine you hear somebody say, I cannot believe how fast this year is going.
Then I repeat, I cannot believe how fast this year is going.
Exactly, and you try to match the speed and emotion.
So it's not only about the words.
Exactly. It's about training your mouth and brain to work together faster.
That makes sense, because sometimes people know the words, but their mouth is not used to saying them.
Yes, speaking English is physical too. Your mouth, tongue, lips, and breathing all need practice.
That is why pronunciation feels awkward sometimes.
Exactly. Your mouth is learning new movements.
Like learning a dance.
Very similar. At first it feels strange, then slowly it becomes natural.
So what is the best way to do shadowing?
Start with short clips, maybe one sentence from a podcast, movie, or YouTube video.
Not something too long.
Exactly. Listen once, pause, repeat, then do it again.
And again?
Yes, repetition is important because your brain learns through patterns.
That sounds like a great exercise for people who feel stuck.
It is one of the best exercises in the world for fluency.
And people can do it anywhere.
Exactly. While walking, cooking, driving, or sitting at home.
Let me ask something.
Go ahead.
What if somebody feels embarrassed speaking out loud when other people are nearby?
Then start quietly. Speak softly in your room. Practice in the shower. Practice while walking outside. Practice inside your car.
That is a good idea.
The important thing is not where you practice.
It is that you practice.
Exactly. Now here's another advanced technique.
I'm listening.
Start building chunks of English instead of single words.
What do you mean by chunks?
Chunks are small groups of words that naturally go together.
Like phrases?
Exactly. For example, instead of learning only the word tired, learn the phrase, I am really tired today.
That already feels more useful.
Instead of learning only the word busy, learn the phrase, I have been really busy lately.
Because in real conversations, people usually speak in phrases.
Exactly. Native speakers don't build every sentence word by word.
They use patterns.
Yes, their brain remembers groups of words together.
That probably makes speaking much faster.
It does. Imagine someone asks, how are you?
Most people don't stop and think about every word.
Exactly. They already know chunks like, I am doing well, I'm a little tired, or I have been better.
So if people want to sound more natural, they should memorize phrases instead of isolated words.
Exactly. That is one of the fastest ways to improve fluency.
And probably one of the fastest ways to stop translating too.
Yes, because chunks stay together in your mind like one unit.
I really like that.
Here's a useful challenge for everyone listening.
Another challenge?
Instead of learning 10 random English words today, learn 3 useful phrases.
For example, I am looking forward to it.
Or, that reminds me of something.
Or, I don't know if that makes sense.
Those phrases appear in real conversations all the time.
Which means you will probably use them faster.
Exactly. And now let us talk about one more thing that can dramatically improve your speaking.
What is it?
Speed is not the same as fluency.
Wait, really?
Yes, many learners think fluent people speak very fast.
That is true. A lot of people believe that.
But speaking fast does not always mean speaking well.
Sometimes fast speakers are hard to understand.
Exactly. Real fluency means speaking clearly, comfortably, and naturally.
Not like an auction machine.
Exactly. In fact, many fluent speakers talk slowly because they want to be understood.
That is such a relief, because some people feel pressure to speak super fast.
And when they try to speak too fast, they make more mistakes.
Or they panic.
Exactly. So if you need more time, take more time.
Pause.
Breathe.
Think.
Then continue.
Because a calm speaker sounds more confident than a rushed speaker.
Exactly. And confidence is often more important than speed.
That is such an important point.
Let me tell you a quick story.
Go ahead.
2 people went to the same English interview.
Okay.
The first person spoke very fast, but made many mistakes and looked nervous.
That probably made a bad impression.
The second person spoke more slowly, used simple words, paused sometimes, but looked calm and confident.
And I'm guessing that person did better.
Exactly, because communication is not a race.
That is something people really need to remember.
You do not need to sound perfect.
You just need to sound clear.
Exactly. And if this episode is helping you think differently about your English, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Talk Easy Daily, and share it with someone who always says, I understand English, but I cannot speak.
Because that person probably needs to hear this.
In the next part, we are going to recap everything, bring all the ideas together, and give you one final mindset shift that could completely change the way you learn English.
And honestly, it might be the most important lesson in the entire episode. Let us bring everything together, because by now you have probably realized something very important.
Learning English is not only about words and grammar.
Exactly. It is about habits, confidence, emotions, and the way you train your brain.
Which means if you keep using the wrong methods, you can study for years and still feel stuck.
But if you use the right methods, even small daily practice can completely change your English.
That is such a powerful idea because it means progress is possible for anyone.
Exactly. You do not need to be a genius.
You do not need perfect grammar.
You do not need a perfect accent.
And you definitely do not need to know every word in the dictionary.
What you need is consistency,
Confidence,
patience,
and the courage to keep speaking even when you make mistakes.
because mistakes are not proof that you are failing.
They are proof that you are learning.
Let us quickly remember the biggest ideas from today,
First, stop overthinking.
because overthinking slows your brain and kills your confidence,
Second, stop speaking negatively to yourself.
because your brain starts believing the story you repeat every day,
Third, stop translating everything in your head.
because fluency becomes much easier when you start thinking directly in English,
Fourth, use stories and emotions to remember words faster.
because your brain remembers feelings better than random information,
Fifth, practice speaking out loud.
because listening alone is not enough. Your mouth needs training too,
Sixth, stop comparing yourself to other people.
because your only competition is the person you were yesterday,
Seventh, focus on phrases and chunks instead of isolated words.
because real conversations happen in patterns, not single words,
And finally, stay consistent.
because 10 minutes every day is more powerful than 5 hours once a month.
And here is the mindset shift we promised.
Stop asking yourself, when will I become fluent?
That question creates pressure.
Exactly. Instead, ask yourself, did I practice today?
That feels much simpler.
Because fluency is not one magical moment.
It's the result of hundreds of small actions repeated over time.
One new phrase,
One short conversation,
one podcast episode,
one moment of bravery.
and one day, without even realizing it, you suddenly understand more than before.
You speak more naturally,
You feel less afraid.
and English becomes part of your life instead of something that scares you.
That is the real goal.
Not perfection.
Progress.
And if you stayed with us until the end of this episode, we want to say something important.
We are proud of you.
Because improving your English is not easy.
It takes time.
It takes patience.
It takes courage.
But you are still here.
And that means you are stronger than you think.
So before you leave, write one thing in the comments that you are going to do after this episode.
Maybe you are going to speak out loud for 5 minutes.
Maybe you are going to stop translating in your head.
Maybe you are finally going to believe that you can become fluent.
And if this episode helped you, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Talk Easy Daily, and share it with someone who needs more confidence in English.
Because sometimes one video can change the way a person sees themselves.
And that can change everything.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Take care and keep going.